What happens when people who have been violently silenced for centuries suddenly decide to speak for themselves? What happens when black artists, scholars, musicians, writers, and political thinkers collectively declare, we will define ourselves? That moment, that eruption of black self-definition is what we call the Harlem Renaissance. But make it no mistake, the Harlem Renaissance was not an accident. It was not simply art, and it was not confined to Harlem alone. It was a deliberate cultural rebellion, a black intellectual and artistic uprising that reshaped how black people saw themselves and how the world was forced to see them. To understand the Harlem Renaissance, we must begin before Harlem. Between 1915 and 1930, over 1.5 million black people fled the South. They were escaping Jim Crow segregation, lynching and racial terror, sharecropping and economic bondage, and political disenfranchisement. They moved northward to cities like New York, Chicago, Detroit, Philadelphia, Cleveland, and Pittsburgh. Harlem, once a white upper-class neighborhood, became the epicenter of this migration due to overdevelopment and failing rents. Black real estate entrepreneurs like Philip A. Payton Jr., known as the father of Black Harlem, who deliberately moved black families into the area. By the early 1920s, Harlem became the largest black urban community in the world. A new black consciousness was born. This period gave rise to what philosopher Alan Locke called the New Negro. No longer content with begging for white approval, the New Negro was self-aware, politically conscious, culturally assertive, proud of African heritage, and determined to tell their own story. This was a direct challenge to white supremacy's portrayal of black people as inferior, primitive, and incapable of high culture. Alan Locke, a Harvard-educated philosopher and the first black Rhodes Scholar, was the chief intellectual architect of the Renaissance. In 1925, he edited The New Negro, an interpretation, a foundational text featuring poetry, essays, fiction, and art. From contributors like Langston Hughes, Zora Neale Hurston, Countee Cullen, Claude McKay, and Jean Toomer, Locke argued that black art was a weapon of racial transformation. Langston Hughes represented one of the poetic voices of the black masses, with poems like The Negro Speaks of Rivers and I Too, centered black working class life and rejected assimilation to white approval. Claude McKay, he was militant and uncompromising. His poem, If We Must Die, became a rallying cry against racial violence. It openly criticized white supremacy and colonialism. Zora Neale Hurston was the anthropologist and storyteller. She preserved Southern black folklore, centered black women's voices, and later wrote The Eyes Were Watching God. Countee Cullen was a classically trained poet who explored race through European poetic forms and wrestled with faith, beauty, and racial identity. Jean Toomer was the author of Cain, a groundbreaking blend of poetry, prose, and drama, which captured rural Southern and urban black life. W.E.B. Du Bois, who was the editor of The Crisis, the NAACP's magazine, promoted black literature and art, believed culture could destroy racist ideology, and advocated for the talented 10th. Now let's take a look at a few musicians who helped create the soundtrack of this revolution. Jazz and blues were the soul of the Harlem Renaissance, with artists such as Duke Ellington, who refined orchestral jazz at the Cotton Club. Louis Armstrong revolutionized improvisation. Bessie Smith was the empress of blues, along with other jazz greats as Ethel Waters and Fletcher Henderson. Jazz was black modernity in sound. It was bold, improvisational, and uncontainable. The visual artists of the Harlem Renaissance, they reimagined Black identity. Artists such as Aaron Douglas, known as the visual artist of the Harlem Renaissance. He portrayed African motifs, modernist style, illustrated books and morals. There was also Meadowval Warwick Fuller, the sculptor addressing Black history and spirituality. Their art visually rejected racist caricatures and reclaimed African heritage. The Harlem Renaissance did not exist without infrastructure. Therefore, it needed institutions to help support. Magazines and journals such as The Crisis and The Opportunity. Patrons and supporters such as Charles S. Johnson, James Weldon Johnson, and Charlotte Osgood Mason. The Cotton Club, literary salons, Black churches, and community theaters became places where Black artists could marinate and be able to explode on the world with artistry and revolutionary changing ideas. The height of the Harlem Renaissance between 1925 and 1929 produced Black literature that gained national attention, Black musicians that reshaped American music, Black intellectuals that debated the future of the race. Harlem became a symbol of Black possibility worldwide, yet contradictions existed. White consumption of the Black culture existed. Economic inequality existed, and racial exploitation always existed. The decline of the Harlem Renaissance came with the Great Depression in 1929. It devastated funding, publishing, and patronage. But while the Renaissance was a movement faded, its impact never died. Why the Harlem Renaissance still matters? The Harlem Renaissance destroyed the myth of Black inferiority. It proved that Black people were producers of high culture. It influenced the Civil Rights Movement, the Black Power movement, hip-hop, and Afrocentrism. It reclaimed African identity in the diaspora, and it taught us one foundational lesson. Control your narrative, or somebody else will weaponize it against you. In closing, the Harlem Renaissance was not just a moment in history. It was a warning to white supremacy, a declaration to the world, a reminder to the world that Black people have always and will forever contribute to high civilization, and humanity will always be grateful to Black people. To all of the contributors of the Harlem Renaissance, we proudly stand on your shoulders. For more information, please visit my website at www.ontheshoulders1.com. There, you can support my OTSOG book series. You can also support me on Patreon at patreon.com/OTSOG. And you can hit the super like button under this video, and you can also join this channel as a member. I love you all, and please catch the next video coming up.